Hello and welcome to the Dailies. Headlines have been dominated by a deepening transatlantic crisis as Donald Trump's Greenland pressure campaign collides with Europe's sovereignty red lines and pushes the EU toward retaliation. The World Economic Forum adds fuel, turning diplomacy into high-stakes spectacle. And with Trump arriving in Davos, the dispute is no longer just a policy fight. It's a dispute played out on the world's most visible stage. We'll start with American media, which framed the Greenland dispute as a high-stakes stress test for NATO and US-Europe ties, with Trump using tariff threats as blunt leverage. Coverage has also leaned hard into economic angle, warning that escalation could rattle markets and weaken the US's safe haven reputation. And with Trump heading to Davos, many reports present it as political theater on a global stage. Politico reveals in an exclusive that the EU is moving closer to activating its toughest trade weapon, the anti-coercion instrument known as the trade bazooka. All this as Germany is now aligning with France, pushing their European Commission to prepare the tool ahead of an emergency EU summit. The piece says leaders are weighing fast retaliation tariffs on 93 billion euros of US exports while the bazooka process runs. It cites diplomats who say the mood has shifted from avoid escalation to prepare for all scenarios, especially as Trump threatens steeper penalties like 200% tariffs on French wine. The Washington Post reports the Pentagon is preparing to scale back U.S. involvement in parts of NATO, cutting participation in elements of the alliance's force structure, and also nearly 30 advisory bodies. The piece explains the plan would affect around 200 personnel, largely by not replacing staff as tours end, stretching the drawdown over years. Also, cuts would hit areas including energy security, naval warfare, special operations, and also intelligence, though some functions may be shifted elsewhere. The report also notes that while officials say it's not directly tied to Trump's Greenland threats, the timing adds to European anxiety that Washington is steadily reducing its military commitments to Europe's defense. The Wall Street Journal warns that the Greenland showdown is accelerating a dangerous shift. The U.S. is starting to lose its safe haven economic status. The piece indeed argues that Trump's coercive diplomacy and tariff threats are pushing allies to hedge away from America, build new trade ties, and also spend more on defense. Yet it notes markets offered an early warning sign. U.S. stocks fell sharply, while Treasury and also the dollar weakened, the opposite of the usual flight to safety pattern. The analysis says the longer-term risk isn't immediate recession, but less foreign capital, higher borrowing costs, and a weaker U.S. economic grip. The Economist, on the other hand, looked at another angle of this dispute, arguing Trump's Greenland pressure campaign is backfiring politically, even among Europe's populist right parties that normally cheer him on. The piece shows how nationalist leaders, especially in France and also in Germany, are struggling to reconcile their sovereignty-first rhetoric with a US president openly threatening a NATO ally territory and wielding tariffs as blackmail. The piece frames Greenland as a stress test, not just for NATO, but also for MAGA's European network. The more aggressive Trump gets, the more he risks becoming an electoral liability. The New York Times editorials delivers a scathing audit of how Trump has allegedly monetized his second term, arguing he has turned the presidency into a vehicle for personal enrichment. The article claims Trump and his family have pocketed at least $1.4 billion through overseas licensing deals, corporate settlements, and lucrative Melania documentary. Also a controversial Qatari jet gift, and most significantly, crypto ventures. The editorial warns warns the true figure is likely higher due to hidden profits and opaque transactions. Across the Atlantic, British and European media continue to cast the Greenland row as a sovereignty crisis and NATO shakeup, not a normal trade dispute. The focus was on Trump's coercion and Europe's response, noting tougher rhetoric, emergency summits and readiness to use the EU trade bazooka. Outlets also framed Davos as the moment this could either be diffused or exploded into a wider transatlantic rupture. Let's start with the Times satirical cartoon, which captures the political mood overshadowing the World Economic Forum in Davos as President Trump heads to Switzerland under the world's anxious, watchful eye. The cartoon, as you can see, portrays Trump arriving at Davos like an emperor, carried through the snow on a lavish gold bed by ununiformed, probably security service, with an American flag, as you can see, waving beside him. The message seems to be that he's treating the World Economic Forum not as a diplomatic meeting of equals, but as a stage for personal power and prestige, insulated almost from consequences, also demanding loyalty and turning global politics into a spectacle. The Telegraph highlighted Donald Trump's clash with Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, portraying it as an escalation. The piece indeed describes Trump mocking Britain's problems, blasting the Chagos deal as stupid and doubling down on his demand to take Greenland. The report notes Trump also took aim at Emmanuel Macron, the French president, calling him friendly in person but rough behind his back, and also dismissing a proposed G7 meeting in Paris. Another transatlantic flashpoint was Trump's proposed Board of Peace, a plan critics say risks sidelining existing international institutions. The Guardian argues that Trump's new board has morphed into something far darker than the UN thought it approved. Not a Gaza-focused peace mechanism, but a Trump-run global club designed to sideline the UN itself. The analysis describes it as a pay-to-play imperial court, with Trump as an all-powerful chairman who picks, fires and overrules members, while life membership costs $1 billion. The piece notes Gaza is hardly mentioned in the new charter, suggesting the UN was misled into approving something very different. The Independent examines the story behind Emmanuel Macron's striking sunglasses look at Davos. The piece explains that the French president's headline-grabbing aviator sunglasses weren't a style statement, but a practical fix. He's been dealing with a harmless eye condition that left his right eye red and also swollen. The piece highlights how he even joked earlier that the look was an Eye of the Tiger reference. However, the piece concludes that behind the sunglasses moment, his Davos message was serious. Europe shouldn't bow to the law of the strongest amid rising tension with Trump over Greenland. And we'll end with Harper's Bazaar, which charts how rumors of a Beckham family rift grew into an open feud. The piece traces tensions back to Brooklyn Beckham and Nicola Peltz's 2022 wedding, where Nicola wore Valentino instead of a Victoria Beckham design, sparking, of course, talk of a fallout. Apparently, after brief signs of peace in 2023 and also in 2024, reports of renewed strain surfaced in 2025, with Brooklyn and Nicola missing major family events. The piece speaks with Brooklyn's January 2026 Instagram statement, accusing his parents of undermining his marriage, humiliating his wife at the wedding, and pressuring him over his name rights. It frames the conflict as both celebrity drama and a deeply personal family breakdown. That's it from us today. Thanks for watching the Dailies, only on Al Arabiya English.